With the current state of Battlefield 2042 and COD returning to a World War II era, we're left with a big empty hole for a good large-scale modern FPS game. What's good guys, and welcome to World War III, the game that could fill the hole in the best way possible. Originally launched back in 2018, the game was an utter disaster that failed to gain any traction and was actually abandoned at one point. But now in 2022, after a long redemption arc, we find ourselves in closed beta with a free-to-play release date expected in March this year. So what is World War III? Like the transition from a hand to a fleshlight, the game was first advertised as a natural progression from Battlefield 4 at a time where there were no alternatives, and it still very much feels like they've stuck to that to this day, but definitely with a push to slightly more hardcore gameplay. Somewhere between Battlefield and Arma would be my best comparison. Offering two game modes of tactical ops that's essentially 20v20 conquest, and a classic 10v10 TDM, there isn't exactly the variety that Battlefield 4 offered, nor the scale, but the developers of the game, Farm 51, are nowhere close to the size of EA and DICE, so expectations have to be limited. After all, this is classed as an indie game, and as we all know, size isn't everything. It's no secret that the most important thing about a first-person shooter is the shooting, or rather the gunplay, and I'm more than pleased to say that the gunplay is the best part of World War III as it stands. The guns have a serious amount of recoil that takes skill to control, tap firing is more than viable, the guns feel unique, weapon weight is hugely important and has a big impact on how each class can be played. Sniping feels seriously clean and satisfying, and the volume of weapon customization is just ridiculous, perhaps too much so as it's a bit overwhelming when scrolling through all the attachments. Just look at how many options there are for the M4 alone, and pressing X when this menu shows off this absolutely sick view of the components in an exploded view, a very nice touch. On the topic of customization, it isn't restricted to weapons. Player outfits are a big part of the game and thankfully are actually restricted to the real and gritty theme of the game. Let's just say you won't see any clown, Santa or cowboy outfits anywhere on the battlefield. Each piece of gear, be that clothing or weapon attachment, has a list of skins that can be individually selected, so no doubt once I've got them unlocked, I'll be sure to be totally blacked out. In the spirit of balance, I'll go straight from a high to a low. The audio. I've been playing this game through a pair of Biodynamic DT990 Pros and I'm sorry to say that it sounds pretty much crap. Footsteps are way too loud, the guns, with the exception of sniper rifles, sound like airsoft rifles, and the directional audio is really bad. Here's a clip of me being sniped at where I literally couldn't tell where it was coming from. I'm being suppressed, that's good. Grenade. Alright, one past me, all good. Still being suppressed by this sniper, I don't know where he is. Just the audio is so bad I actually can't tell. The heck? Oh, he was behind me the entire time. Man, granted that some of it is down to me not knowing the map yet, so knowing where I could be killed from, but it's still super unclear and is in real need of some TLC. Speaking of maps, it is so refreshing coming from 2042 to a game where I don't feel like I'm standing in the open with my dick hanging out for all to see. I now have places to do that in private. Cover is well scattered and visually matches everything else in the game, but there isn't so much that long range fights aren't possible. The flow of the maps, however, is a bit of a different story. I'm not sure if it's just the nature of conquest style game modes or the smaller player count, but I did feel like there was a bit of running simulator going on when moving between objectives that often ended in a ghost cap, which for the uninitiated is just capturing an objective without seeing a single enemy player. An easy fix is obviously to just increase their player count, but I'm not too sure with the tactical feel of this game that it's necessarily the best option. Speaking of the tactical feel, what exactly is it? I think the main two things for me that make the game feel more simulator than stimulator are the movement speed and the time to kill. The movement is much slower than any COD or Battlefield game, and is heavily affected by what gun you're using or what you're carrying, but it doesn't feel clunky. Sliding is the thing as you'd expect, and crouch sprinting is a sweet bonus, but just don't expect Sundance somersaults off every tiny object. As for the time to kill, it's fast. Real fast. Like, oh my god, did you just... fast. But unlike that scenario, this isn't a bad thing at all. A faster TTK generally leads to a bigger skill gap, which is fine by me, and with headshots being so powerful in this game and the nature of the gunplay, if someone kills you in a straight 1 versus 1 fight, it's because they were better. There isn't random weapon bloom like 2042 or anything like that, and a feature that I love is that on your death you get a report of where the enemy's bullets hit you, and for how much, so before you call them a cheating fuckbag, you can check if it really was all headshots from across the map. Random deaths across the map are sadly still a thing, and it has nothing to do with hackers. An unfortunate trait of any hardcore FPS game is that vehicles are destined to be annoyingly powerful. Each team starts the round with an LAV style ride that absolutely rinses infantry and takes quite a few RPGs to take down. Further vehicles can be called in through COD style kill streaks. I call them kill streaks, but they're more point streak rewards and range from basics like UAVs to tank call-ins to napalm strikes, all of which are very strong, lots of fun and very useful when taking an objective. It's good to see a game not being too afraid to add cool things for not much more reason than they're cool. That of course still fits in with the whole theme of the game. Given that it can ruin so many people's gaming experience, I will put in a quick note on performance, because there's no shame in admitting that keeping up a frame rate can be an issue that affects most of us, regardless of our equipment. I'd say on the whole, performance is good for a beta. I didn't crash once in my time playing, which often can't be said, and the frame rate is better than 2042, but of course the maps are much smaller with much fewer players. Obviously optimization is a slow process, but I can vaguely remember only getting around half the frames I got now compared with when the game first launched, which is huge progress. As I said at the start of the video, the game is currently in closed beta, but you can gain access to it now if you previously purchased the game, or by paying around £11 in the Steam store. On the whole, this game has huge potential, and with the current competition for large-scale FPS games, I think it's a prime time to finally get the player base and attention it deserves. Have you played the closed beta, or will you do so now? Or are you going to wait until March because everything's better when it's free? Let me know in the comments section below. Like if you liked, and I'll see you next time. Bye.